Okay, so NCTV, if you're out there and can hear me, are we live? Or can Kathy or Holly tell me?
We are live.
We are live. Okay, good, because it is 1 o'clock and I'd like to keep this as close to an hour and a half as we possibly can. So I'm hoping to devote the first hour from 1 to 2 to our normal other business stuff. And then we can segue over at approximately 2 o'clock to our Stone Alley applications. That would be the ideal scenario. Oh, so Stephen has just joined us. Very good. So I'm going to get this going. Hi, everybody. This is Ray Pohl. I'm the chairman of the Nantucket Historic District Commission. The first order of business is to see which members are present at this time. So members, when I call your names, if you could just respond in the affirmative. Val Oliver.
Here.
Thank you. Diane Coombs.
Here.
Thank you, Diane. Abby Camp.
Here.
Very good. Carrie Thornwell.
Here.
Great. Stephen Welch.
There.
You're not out on the open seas, I hope, Stephen.
No.
All
Short a
right.
tablet though.
Terra firma. That's what we need today. Okay, I think that might be it for board members. Oh, and Ray Pohl, of course. So staff, when I call your names, could you please respond in the affirmative? Kathy Flynn.
Present.
Thank you. Holly Backus.
Present.
Very good. Thanks so much. Excuse me. This open meeting of the Nantucket Historic District Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020. That order, posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to convene remotely so long as public access to deliberations is reasonably provided. This meeting is convening via Zoom with video and audio recording, and we are being broadcast via YouTube on the town's YouTube channel. With no member of the public having asked to speak, this particular meeting will not feature public comment. Materials provided to members for the meeting or provided during the meeting are, unless otherwise noted, available on our town's website. During the meeting, I will introduce agenda topics and speakers. So please remember to mute your Zoom audio until your name is called. And please direct all comments and questions through the chair to avoid crosstalk and to make the taking of minutes easier. Finally, votes taken at today's meeting will be conducted by roll call. Okay. Having said that, I think that I can have a motion from one of you members.
So moved.
Thank you, Diane. So Diane has made a motion to approve today's agenda. Let's see, on that motion, and I'm going to just choose at random. Carrie, you'll vote on this one. Val Oliver.
Aye.
Diane Coombs.
Aye.
Abby Camp.
Aye.
Carrie Thornwell.
Aye.
And I'm in favor, so that motion carries. So now we have an approved agenda. So moving right along, we are first at our organizational meeting. And first thing to review on our organizational meeting agenda is the streamlining of Zoom meetings. And for this purpose, I believe Val Oliver has done a really nice audio visual presentation. Val, should we start there? Would you care to share that with us?
Sure.
Okay.
And I will have to share because these guys don't have email, so they weren't able to receive it to put it on. So how do I do that? Just hit share screen?
I believe so.
Okay.
You have to open up your PDF and then hit
Okay.
share screen and then
Okay.
find it and hit share screen.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're on. Great, fantastic.
Okay, so I have been feeling like we're really struggling with the format we're forced to use right now. And from my perspective, there's a couple of things that I think if we do, it would make a world of difference in the majority of our meeting. So the first thing is preparation is key for board members. We get the links for these agendas on Friday, and our meetings are generally Monday or Tuesday. And I think that gives us time to at least go through and look at any of the agenda items, that you think, you have concern with. But it also gives you a quick glance to look through anything ahead of time and maybe jot down some of your thoughts. I know that not everyone can get out to view, so I will continue to commit myself to going around and shooting some photos and giving them to staff to present, because I do think it's imperative for us to see the context, especially of the applications that need more review or maybe pending what you can see or not see. So I am basically requesting all of my board members here to try and do that. I know everybody's busy and, it's one more thing to do, but we have signed up for this on our own volition. And I think that it can sincerely cut down on time at the meeting. We're not looking at things for the first time and having to blow them up and all of that. So that's one request I have. I did notice on this agenda as well that there is a discussion item number 3 about additions and new dwellings added to the consent agenda. I think that looking at all of these items again ahead of time, if that's a concern you have, please do review. There are a few of us that volunteer time to go through applications with the staff because there's such a great amount of them and they just don't have 25 arms. And when we put something on the consent agenda, we truly believe it is consentable. So I think this is a win-win all the way around. So anybody who has concerns about that, if you look at the links ahead of time, I think that's really going to help.
Val?
So yes.
You referenced item number 3 on our agenda, which is being able to have additions and new dwellings added to the consent agenda. So I guess the reason that you brought that in was to say that if we allow that.
In the past, we have put additions and some new dwellings on consent, and there was a concern by the board.
Right, some members of the board.
Right, so I'm just saying, if you look at stuff ahead of time, and it still is a concern, most definitely pull it off.
Okay, the point being, if you just have this sort of knee-jerk reaction to somebody consenting a new dwelling, rather than hold it up at the hearing, pre-review it. And maybe it wouldn't be a concern, but just to sort of categorically say, oh, well, it's a new dwelling. Why is it on consent? That's what.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Are there any things that are not consentable?
What?
Are there any things that are not consentable? Are there any black and white issues of that?
No. But
Okay.
what Val is referring to, and we will deal with this a little bit later in the meeting, maybe at greater length, but so certain members of the board.
No, I understand the back talk that you just said. I just wanted to find out for sure if there was anything that was unconsentable.
No.
But I understand everything up to that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks.
So just on that point, while we're talking about it, should we just chime in or?
Of
Want to
course.
hear the whole
Well, okay. So Val is making a presentation. Val, what would you prefer? Would you prefer to just run through your whole presentation, which, by the way, thank you so much for doing this. Would you rather run through the whole presentation and have us hold our comments to the end, or just jump in? What would you prefer?
Yeah, I'll just run through it real quick and then everybody can just chime in.
Abby,
I'm just gonna make a note now and then bring
make
it
a
up
note.
later.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Abby. Thanks. Okay, so the second thought that I was struggling with is that I know the Zoom format presents a lot of challenges. And for me, one of the things that's most difficult, I think, is that when someone's talking, we're not always looking at exactly what's being said at that moment. That's not a judgment, it's an observation. So I think that, and it does work for some applications, but when there are applications that require more extensive review and explanation, I think that the applicant should be able to take control of the screen and run through it as they're presenting it. I think it will be a smoother presentation, and because they know the material so well, they will be talking about what they have on the screen in front of them. And I think that will help a lot to make things clear. I find a lot of times we're looking at the screen and somebody wants to talk about something that was four screens ago, and you know what I mean? So it's a thought, it's a request. I welcome anybody's input on that when I'm done with this, but I really do think that could eliminate a lot of confusion. There's been some snafus lately with the way the subcommittees meet and review material. And I think that's kind of causing some disjunct at meetings as well. So for instance, if you had to go to Nantucket advisory and they didn't meet the week you put your presentation in, but they met the next, it just seems like it's getting confusing. So maybe we should think about the schedule with regard to that, how somebody's presenting. Because I find what ends up happening is, say HSAB says X, Y, and Z, and you can say, oh, I agree with that. I better make those changes before the HDC presentation, but what's already been submitted is different. It starts to get confusing when stuff is coming in on the fly at the meeting. So it's just an area that I think requires a little bit more thought maybe. And less confusion is always better. And lastly, I think that it is imperative for the applicants and agents to have everything they need at every meeting. And I know this happens a lot. You bring in the bulk of all your information, your photos, your history, the whole 9 yards for the very first application. And then as revisions are made or reapplications are made for things that are changing, that falls behind the wayside. And sometimes what happens is, because I think everyone thinks we have these like minds that remember every application. Oh my God. We don't. And so kill us with information. I mean, it's better to just have it all in the package with every application so that we don't have to rely on the staff to look back at 3 meetings ago to find the attachment that we're looking for. You know what I mean? So I think it's just preparation, preparation, preparation. And lastly, this is a big one for applicants and agents. If the board is repeatedly requesting major changes to what you're presenting, just coming back week after week, month after month with minor incremental changes is a waste of your time and ours. And the only result is that there's pushback for more revisions and more meetings for the same item, leading to a lot of distress and anger and a waste of time. So these are, here's my key with the yay at the end. Preparation of board members, preparation of applicants and agents, and modifications to Zoom presentations add up to less meeting time.
Yay, Val.
Well, you can actually, thank you so much for that, Val. So it's interesting because our HDC meeting times are kind of finite. You know, we've been going from 4:30 to 9 o'clock pretty much with the Thursday meetings, which I would rather do without. But the other side of this is we are so far behind in terms of, you know, our backlog of stuff, and it doesn't seem to be getting better. It seems to be getting worse as I see it. So yeah, maybe same meeting time, but processing more applications and being able to catch up.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to say. Instead of us having like, this is our third meeting for the week, if we stuck to what we were supposed to have, just one, it would be great for everybody. So
Yep.
I know there's probably many other suggestions. These were just mine. I say, everybody join in.
Well, again, thanks so much. One of the things that I would add to that is we're the Nantucket Historic District Commission, and I think we should stick to the topics that we're supposed to be reviewing, not specific types of plant material, not noise from a pool, not, you know, shadows on neighbors, things like that. That if we stayed on point, if we stayed on exactly what we're supposed to be reviewing, I think that the length of time would be decreased on each application. Having said that, you know, we all appreciate and understand that there are concerns from neighbors and so forth, as we see every single week. But we have to appreciate and, you know, understand those concerns within what is our purview, which is, you know, the HTC purview, not sound ordinance purview or that sort of thing, you know, night sky purview. Okay, I'd love to hear from anybody on this one.
I have an efficiency question for you, or suggestion maybe.
Go for it.
At the beginning of each application, for the designated staff to read the colors, the height, maybe zoom in on the locus map to get everyone oriented, just to start out knowing the height, the colors, and the location, just as a
Great idea.
like every time.
You know, the board, Carrie, you've been around probably long enough to know that that actually used to happen.
Yeah, it's
On every application, you know, the administrator would just sort of read down colors this, you know, height this, length this, you know, all the boilerplate stuff. So I think that's a great idea.
I'm taking notes.
Okay. Anyone else? Because I got a few things, few other things.
I have a couple, but I think Abby had one. I don't know if she's gonna.
Abby,
Thank you, Steve. Just briefly, I am concerned about putting new dwellings and swimming pools on consent. And I find, you know, it seems like every day ends up being Tuesday and 1 o'clock on Thursday, which I still can't get it through my head that we have a meeting every Thursday at 1. I don't know what is wrong with me, but I almost forget it every Thursday. But I just feel that sometimes, you know, I look at the views, but I think a new dwelling, I know you're looking at them, and I know you're so sensitive and conscious of I just don't, it always, I feel really guilty when I do the consent and there are a couple of new dwellings on there. So I'm, you know, if you can make me feel better about that, I I would feel better about that.
So Abby,
Yeah,
Val's point on that was, and we're sort of getting ahead of ourselves here because this is item number 3 and maybe we're just sort of mixing it all together. But so Val's point on that is if you do have a concern about a new house being on the consent agenda, you're able to pre-review the consent agenda and look at it and have a concern for, like, let's say on a Friday, you know, it's like, oh gosh, there's a new house that's going up on Somerset Road or whatever, that you're able to review the application.
right.
And if it continues to be a concern, if you disagree with it being on consent, then you could raise it as a concern. But what
Yeah,
Val-
yeah, but what I said was that, like, I try to be prepared, but sometimes we're all just not, and we just let things go. And I think holding up the meeting on consent is also a bad feeling I have. I don't want to hold up the consent. So I don't want to bring it up, and because then you have to bring up the drawings and you have to stop the thing. And so, you know, then I feel badly about that. And the other thing you know, I'm talking about how far behind we are. I've given up trying to, you know, like race through stuff, because I think if we take our time, we do our due diligence, maybe it takes a little longer, but then we don't get things wrong. Like there are a couple of things I voted on and I've just been wrong. And you know, I'm not looking at the length of how much we have to get through. I'm looking at how best we can serve, you know. So I don't know if speed is always the best thing. I mean, we're just in a time of incredible growth, and you know, that this is what we're stuck with at the moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I
Can I add something to that when you have a minute?
Yeah, and I'd like to speak at some point before we reiterate.
See here. Val, were you going to respond directly to Abby's comments?
No, let everybody else say. I can
Okay,
talk
so
later.
then Diane, why don't you go?
I would go along, and I understand what Abby is saying. We have we have to have some respect for the application, in this case, a new dwelling. We have to let the people know that we have that a respect for it, and people who go and pay architects $50 million to have a house designed expect probably to get more consideration than just being approved on consent. I think that's one of the things that the HDC should follow. We have, as Abby said, like up in Vesper Lane, made a terrible mistake and they're undoable. So I think that new stuff, we should have a chance of just putting it on consent or whatever, or talking about it. I think that's the thing, because not everybody sees what sometimes people make mistakes and they don't understand something. So I think that needs to be thought about a little bit more.
Okay. Thank you, Diane. And by the way, I'd love to know, I must be doing something wrong if I'm not getting $50 million in fees on a house.
Yeah, that was.
Well,
I feel like a sucker now.
yeah,
I knew you wanted to say something.
too bad for you.
Stephen,
Oh, yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So can I share the screen?
please. This is going to be our new thing now, screen sharing, which I need to learn how to do, by the way.
Yeah.
Val, you have to release yours.
Okay. How do I do that?
Just click
I just
whatever.
did it for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So bear with me.
Yeah.
Do you guys see the,
Yep. The agendas and minutes, yes.
Okay, so I just want to be clear on this because I think it can be confusing, and I think there's some utility in very briefly going through this. This is under the heading preparation. I agree with all the comments. One, we would be well served to be better prepared. I want to put a dollar number on that. If we meet 4.5 hours on a Tuesday, an hour and a half on a Thursday, we spend 2 hours doing views and preparation. You got 8 hours a week times 50 hours a year. Off the top of my head, that's 400 hours. Multiply that out at a moderate $65 an hour. That's $26,000 that we're each, if you're working, you're not putting it into your bank account for retirement. So I think it's respectful not only of the process to be as prepared as possible, but it's also respectful of the applicants. And I think it gives us then time to process applications. And I realize that clearly we're in, the inundation period in the HDC, historically unprecedented. However, it would give us some time to be focusing on organizational matters. And I feel that we are loath to we don't have the time for that, and it's unfortunate because there are a host of issues and initiatives that need our attention. That is our mission. So I thought if you could give me 30 seconds, I could just walk the process here.
Not letting you click on them?
Did you see something, Val?
No, I think he's trying
Trying
to.
to open up one of these documents, I think.
Mhm. Oh,
Are you guys there?
yeah,
Okay, sorry. I was asking, can you see the mouse on the screen?
we can see the mouse, yes.
Okay, thank you. So look, I'm just trying to quickly walk through that. The simplicity in using the Agenda Center for previewing materials is don't get caught up in these download buttons. You simply go to the material you want to look at, for instance, consent with conditions, or if you want to preview after you look at the agenda and you see there's a new dwelling or a pool, or you not sure you're going to have time to do the view pack, you want to click on the view pack. So for me, you can do this on a tablet. It makes things a lot simpler because you can zoom in and out. It will bring up a particular property. We could go to a pool and a pickleball court. I can go through the application. I can look at the colors, the heights. I can determine whether there's a cross section involved. I'm on a tablet. I can zoom in and look at details that you can't look at a meeting.
Right.
I think it's important for people to understand the utility there. So I don't want to waste a lot of time on it, but I did want to mention it. I'm happy to conduct a little seminar. The cost is a pint of Guinness.
Count me in. Count me in.
So I'm going to stop the share on that. And then I guess my other comments are, I'm just going to try things that Vale mentioned.
You faded out there, kid.
Even?
Am I back?
You're
Yep.
back. Yes.
Sorry, guys. I'm not sure the order, but I think I'm going to hold on crosstalk. I think that's something we can pick up later. I think Val had mentioned applicant access, and I think that there's an important distinction that we need to make. One is sharing the screen as I just did, which means that the applicant's agent brings up information on their own computer.
Yes.
What I see problematic with that approach is that new information that's not de minimis is introduced. It's confusing, and it's more confusing if it's not something one of the advisory boards has not yet reviewed. And I think it's unfair to other applicants for that to be happening. The other option is what's called the host can grant remote control. And what they're granting is remote control over the specific slides, the screen, the PDF of their application. So that keeps the information contained to information that's been previewed, not only by the advisory boards and the staff, but also members. I find it incredibly frustrating. Once in a while, it's not an issue, certainly, but it's incredibly frustrating to be investing time in previewing these applications only to find out that they're not, that's not actually what we're viewing. We're viewing something else when an applicant shares the screen. So I think that that's one thing we'd want to keep in mind. The other is along the lines of spending time at the table. Val didn't bring this up, but well, let me back into this. Designing at the table, Mr. Chairman, you had mentioned not getting into topics that aren't necessarily our purview. This kind of relates to this, that topic, in the sense that it's something where our role and our goal isn't to be redesigning. And I'm not suggesting that everyone does it, and I'm not suggesting that I'm not guilty of it. I think the only time we should be designing is at the table is if an applicant is not having an understanding of our the concepts we're trying to relate to them, and then you may use an example to help make that happen. And I want to apologize also if I'm talking quickly. It's in deference to your time, and I just ask that you keep up. So there's the concept of designing at the table that I think is problematic. The other I think that Val brought up is this idea of I think I'm going to illustrate this differently. When we get applications, our goal should be, and I think the concept of having Building with Nantucket in mind, which is the guidelines, is that an applicant can come in, and certainly an experienced architect or designer, their goal in front of us should be one and done. And I'm not suggesting that we set a rigid policy, but we should be encouraging everything in every way, including our own behavior towards designs that are not responsive to our requests for modifications, because it is not respectful of applicants' agents. I'm not suggesting anyone does this as a strategy, but I'm just saying this is how I feel, and it's my observation, that we will get an application that comes in and it will literally take several months with only minor changes. It's really not fair to any of the parties involved, not to the volunteers who are contributing their time, the staff who are being paid, or because the fees don't really cover all these revisions, or to the other applicants in the queue. And then again, it brings us back to the point where we don't have time for organizational planning and discussion. So a couple just more quick ones is, I think with respect to plant materials, I certainly agree. We shouldn't be, if someone gives me an opportunity to say climbing hydrangea, I'll say it. But I think it's important that we, to the extent we utilize plant materials as screening in order to approve something, there really needs to be some consideration of what that material is. Because, for example, it seemed like for a long time, the HGC was allowing Leyland cypress. And that literally turns, if you go down Newtown Road, you can see where it's turning areas into alleyways. So I think we need to be sensitive to plant material, and to the extent that plant material is an architectural element, or will become an architectural element, or it will create a flavor of what an architectural element is, then we need to weigh in. But I agree, we shouldn't be doing a landscape plan.
Can I say one thing on that, Stephen?
Yeah, please.
Look, I absolutely 100% totally agree with your Leyland cypress thing. However, if it's not related to an architectural submission where something is plant material is being used to screen a pool or some unsightly thing, if I had a house on any given road in Nantucket and I wanted to plant Leyland cypress and I didn't have any architectural thing that I was applying for, I could just call up my landscaper and go out and have them plant it. Like, there's no HDC rule that says that you have to get HDC approval for a hedge.
Yeah, I'm not following you though.
Well, so, if I'm not saying that we should advocate the use of Leyland cypress or privet or anything in particular, but if you had said earlier that the reason that we're reviewing plant material is to screen an architectural feature. All I'm saying is, we can't stop the use of Leland cypress as the HDC because homeowners can just go out and plant it. They don't need.
Oh,
to-
yeah. No, oh, thank you. I get your point. Yeah, and let me put a finer point on my point. I'm not suggesting that we broaden the act to include plant materials as architectural elements, at least not at this point, maybe in 10 years. But if we, all I'm suggesting is that if we are approving an architectural element which we would not otherwise approve but for screening,
Right.
I think the expectation both amongst the commissioners and anyone who listens in and cares to chime in, and certainly applicants, is that we're going to weigh in on that. I think that's a fair and reasonable approach in an imperfect world, but I agree with you. We shouldn't be, our purview isn't landscaping. Is that clear? Or
The purview is not landscaping in and of itself.
Correct.
We don't have that ability, but we are able to use landscape elements as screens for other architectural things that we are reviewing and have control over.
Yes.
Anyway,
And then my last comment is just, and sorry to, I wasn't filibustering. I just, I wanted to get them out. I've been thinking about these for months. Crosstalk. And I think, Mr. Chairman, you do a marvelous job. And as I've said, probably to at least 100 times, maybe it's to 5 people 20 times each, or it's to 100 people 1 time each. I don't really know. The way you manage the meeting is to be applauded. But I think one of the things we need to do is try and focus on cutting down crosstalk and politely encouraging people not to be cross-talking. I come from a big family. Again, something I probably said 100 times. We interrupt each other. It's just something we do, but it is something in this medium that's very difficult, and it makes it problematic for a variety of reasons, none of which I'm going to get into. I think they're all apparent. So I think that's one of the other thing we need to be encouraging good manners. And with that, I'll pass the mic. Thank you.
and the mic, I think, goes to Carrie. She had
I
her
just have a question on the crosstalk thing. What's an appropriate way to have a comment responded to? Like if an applicant's talking or there's a comment made and you feel that it's important to get another comment in, do you just wait and then bring it up later? Sometimes I feel like it gets gone by then. So raising a hand, is that the right way to do it? Just to
Well,
say I have or it's just not.
kind of depends on the circumstances. Like we've all experienced these things where an applicant will come in, and usually it's, somebody who's kind of unfamiliar with the system, and they'll come in and like, they'll hear the opinions of one person, one board member, and all of a sudden they'll start rebutting like, oh, well, this and that. And I say, stop, no, stop. We need to hear from all 5 members before you can respond. Let's get the whole big picture. And similarly, on the other side, Carrie, if you say, well, I have the following comments, and you give your comments, and then I move on to somebody else, and you say, oh, I forgot to mention one other thing. Well, of course, I'm going to allow you to say that, that additional thing. I don't want to let that disappear. So unfortunately, that is a little bit discretionary. I just feel like if something's getting out of hand, if somebody keeps rebutting every single comment that every single board member makes, I'm going to shut them down.
Right. But you're able to see hands raising when you're.
Well, I saw yours, but the way my screen is set up, I actually don't see, I don't see Diane right now. She's black.
Right.
Stephen is just a photograph. So if they're waving their hands, I'd never know it.
Right.
But to the extent that I'm able, certainly I would recognize you. Certainly board members for sure.
I'm trying to put up a hand.
I have a hand up.
Oh,
Okay,
good.
well, yes. So we all know that there's that little thing down the bottom where you can say reactions. It says reactions, and you can put a hand up. And so that, I like the clapping one best of all. All right. So,
The idea just on the crosstalk, I want to make a distinction between having discussion amongst ourselves, between the applicant's agent or the applicant and the board, or the commission, and people literally talking over one another. And I think that that second part is the most problematic, because you start to lose coherence. You're focusing more on the emotional aspect of not being able to get your point across or being cut off. And I think if we lose track of details, and that's where we can make mistakes. And I think, Mr. Chairman, that's up to you. And then the other part of it is, I think if we try to structure discussion, I'm not saying every application, certainly a shed doesn't need this level, but there are many applications, thankfully not the majority, where if people, they present their case, their application, their changes, their revisions, and then they're done talking, and the commission then proceeds with its discussions, unless we have a question of the applicant, and then we each get an opportunity to ask a question, and then the discussion you and Carrie just had comes into play. But I think encouraging that type of behavior with applicants is conducive to a better flowing meeting and a better product at the end of each application. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, folks, anything else on this subject?
Well, I didn't want to interrupt, but I wanted to say that the arborvitae comes up a lot, and a lot of architects don't know that turns into a topiary pretty fast. And I think if
saying, I agree with you. I mean, yeah.
Right.
It's one thing to give somebody who is like not knowledgeable on that stuff, like, oh, the deer eat the bottom half of those trees, you're going to get a topiary. That's informational. The other one has to do with like what your personal preference in plant material happens to be. And I think that's where it's sort of like, well, it's not up to us to decide whether they prefer elms or oaks, I mean, that's their decision, not ours.
Well,
Anyway.
When we were doing Wilt Square, part of their application, they kept asking us, what do we want to see down there? And we said no seagrasses. So that was a sort
Right.
of.
That was a good call. Yes, it was. And that was a rather complicated application because there was also the Concom was involved, and they have their own set of what's approvable and not approvable. So yeah, that's a specifically difficult application. Okay, should we move on to the next item on our agenda?
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair,
Yes.
can I say something as staff real quickly about screen sharing? And to Stephen's point and Val's point, they can screen share off the website. That way we know I have it here in the office and that you all have already reviewed it.
Well, that's great. As something that I completely have no knowledge of, I think that the method needs to be disseminated among applicants so that they know what they can and cannot do, how to go about it, the procedure. Okay. Thank you. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Steve.
I know we've got a little bit of time here, so I'm hoping that one of the things I found useful over time in these types of meetings is to try and establish some action items, first determining what we have consensus on. And it may be the action items are simply, yes, we all promise that we'll try and do better and we'll try and remind each other at meetings or so on and so forth. Yeah. But I think it might be a good idea with the level of frustrations that have been expressed or vented during meetings that maybe we just kind of could maybe spend 5 minutes on that if it works for you. Like, for instance, Val had said preparation. Is there anyone who feels that they can't do that? And if not, is there some thoughts on how we might go about being better prepared? Managing crosstalk. I mean, just in terms of simply going through some of those points and establishing some consensus. I suggested it. Are you looking for me to finish it?
Yeah, I don't quite know how to go about what you're hoping.
All right. So I guess what I would ask of the membership is, are there any points that anyone feels are either structurally difficult to accomplish or inconvenient, or they don't feel that it's a worthwhile goal, or like, let's spend a few minutes talking through this so we know if we're on the same page or not, because literally that's what this is all about, is being on the same page. Abby, did you have any?
Oh, no, I think my brief point was that, and I think you did it by adding up all the hours that we spend. I mean, sometimes I really do skip the views and I'm not prepared. I mean, I will try to be better, but there are weeks where I am not prepared and I'm guilty, but no, I will try to be more diligent on that. Like, I think we all know the island. One of my problems is I know certain parts of the island really well, and I know, you know where you are, and Carrie knows where, Carrie's got the Quidnet covered. I've got Sconset, everybody's got like something, but sometimes I don't know where the hell we're talking about it. And, I don't know where the heck it is. It's a new development so sometimes I'm just not prepared. And, I guess that's just called life. You just, we can't be everywhere all the time. So.
Well, we're all tremendously overburdened.
All right. Diane, did you have any concerns or?
Yeah, I think that whatever we plan and come out with, and the ideas are good and stuff like that, but I think we would do better if we tried them than saying, this is what we have to do. We are a group of 7 people, and each person looks at the application differently. And I think that we would come out better if we try some of the things and not everybody say, okay, today we're not going to do this and so, but we have to be a working group. And I think we have become pretty good at that. But I think that if somebody feels strongly about something and it's not particularly in the discussion, they still are a commissioner and they still should be able to say what they had to say and not be wiped out because it's not on the list, if you understand what I mean.
I think so. Val, you got anything to close us out?
No, I was just simply asking for everyone involved in this process to try and be a little more prepared. And I think it could make a significant difference on the other end. That was it. There's no mandate.
Yeah, I hear you.
Can I add one thing about Val's thing about applications going to like HSAB, for instance, and then the applicant changing things before they come here, but it's not changed in the application. As a procedure, could there be a rule that if you decide after HSAB to change something before it goes to HDC, that you got to pull that application and do a new full application, because it does have to coordinate. The drawings that you submit have to coordinate with what we see. And if you've changed something, it has to be part of that paperwork.
Can I say something on that score?
Please.
All right. The HSAB, whatever the HSAB meeting times are, and the fact that they don't align with the HDC meeting times is problematic. It's baked into the cake, because if I go to HSAB in good faith and HSAB says this or that, and then I go and change stuff, and then I have to wait 2 more weeks for the next deadline because I, in good faith, changed stuff that they had requested, and I lose 2 weeks of time on that, guess what I'm going to do? I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to go in and say, well, HSAB said this and I didn't do it. That's what I'm going to say.
Right. But then we get a chance to look at it and comment also. So you could walk away with HSAB's comments and ours.
I don't always agree with HSAB.
Right. But then they can choose who they're going to try to accommodate, so to speak. I could want to accommodate HSAB and HDC and come back with a full set of revisions for addressing both boards.
And you're saying in the process, you've just lost 2 weeks of your client's time.
Right. So
I-
I guess if it goes to HSAB, an applicant shouldn't be able to change stuff first and then come to us without it being part of the application.
Well, I would just suggest, Carrie, because I actually spoke on that point too, is that if it relates to screen sharing or putting something up, that's where I don't believe, other than de minimis changes, if you go to HSAB and they say, well, you need to make this these 6 gables into sheds, and I want to see some other roof elements, and if there are substantial changes, I believe that we should be looking at what HSAB looked at and not looking at what the applicant wants to change. However, I'm not suggesting that the applicant can't change it and then say, by the way, I would like to screen share separately. Where I'm finding difficulties is where someone says,
Right.
this is what HSAB looked at, but this is what I drew, and I want to review what I drew. And I'm not pointing fingers because I understand people are trying to get things done. That's, we're all trying to make a living here. But I think it makes it very difficult if we're not all looking at the same baseline initially, unless again, it's de minimis. I hope that's helpful.
Right. So just finding the solution of having it all in one place.
Well, no, but what Stephen is suggesting is you go to HSAB, they make recommendations, you still have the official file unchanged.
Right.
And you walk in with vest pocket and you do a screen share and say, oh, by the way, HSAB said they didn't like these porches, so here's what I did. And then you don't get kicked 2 weeks down
Right.
the pike.
But maybe what they did to change according to HSAB, that needs to be submitted and put with the file so it's up the night we see it, is my point.
That's in opposition to what Stephen just said.
Oh,
Well, I think that it's hard to be, okay, I would just suggest that we need to encourage the behavior that we would like to see. For me, if someone brings in some changes and they're major, have the courtesy to submit them and ask specifically that they be posted. Staff may give you pushback on that because they're already under a deadline to get things done, and they may not have time to cater to your particular need as an applicant's agent. And if that's the case, you also need to be courteous to them because, we're all working together here in a sense. But at the same time, I think we can make a decision at the table. If someone says, oh, I made these changes, and we're like, okay, we'll look at them. But then they open the file and it's like, hold on a minute. This is like a whole new structure. It needs to go back to HSAB. So that's where I would be a little leery of suggesting a hard and fast rule.
right.
But I'm just appreciative of the fact that we're talking about these things because it makes it a little bit easier when we're addressing it later on the fly.
Okay. Diane, you had your hand up earlier. Is it still? Oh, it's,
No, it's, I just didn't know how to get it down again.
oh, actually, it just disappeared. Okay, we're good. Okay, should we move along to item number 2? And keep
Yeah.
in mind that we're theoretically jumping over to Stone Alley at 2:00. We'll see about that.
We didn't even have enough time to have our own organizational meeting.
No, we didn't.
Mr. Chair, do you want me to do a quick run through this?
Go for it, man. Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
We basically posted this. The last time I looked at it was more than 6 months ago. I think it was 8 months ago. It was prior to that, we've been working on it on and off for 6 months. So this has been a year-long project and no changes have been made. And it is a summary of how we operate, why we operate. And there is a portion that refers to our mission directly as taken from the act. That hasn't changed. And I would just ask that we've all had a chance to review it. It's been in our packets. Some of us have reviewed it multiple times. And I certainly would love to make a motion to have it approved as submitted to be posted on the website unless there's someone who has a fundamental or material objection.
I make that motion.
Actually, would you mind if I made it?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, and Stephen, before you make it, we actually have a 6-person board, and of course, I'm not sure that I can allow 6 people to vote. So, Carrie,
I'm fine out.
you're okay out? Because then we have 3 regular members. Stephen's going to make we have 4 regular members, including me, and then Stephen would make the motion. Okay, Stephen, go ahead.
I'd make a motion to approve the Nantucket Historic District Commission backgrounds and objectives summary and mission statement as submitted.
Okay, thank you. On Stephen's motion, Val.
Aye.
Thank you. Diane.
I, having read it to many times.
Okay, good. Good for you. Abby Camp.
Aye.
Very good. Stephen, on your motion.
Aye.
And I'm in favor of the motion. Thank you very much for all your hard work, Stephen. I appreciate it. And that motion carries. Fantastic.
Thanks.
Now, so item number 3, we sort of all touched on earlier with Val's presentation. And I guess the solution that I liked, the solution that I felt was the most tenable one, was to allow, actually it already is allowed, that houses and additions can be reviewed and placed onto the consent agenda. Now, there are board members that have concerns about that. And I believe it was Val said, well, the solution to that, and Stephen may have said something similar, the solution to, if you have any concerns about there being a new house placed on the consent agenda, is that you do a pre-review of that to see whether those concerns are founded or unfounded. And then by Tuesday, you know whether it's a real problem or just, just the fact that it's a new house being approved on consent. So that's my opinion. Anyone else on that?
I think there's something we have to think about.
Mm-hmm.
If a house is approved on the consent agenda,
Yes.
and there's one commissioner there who is working that day hard and is doing the thing and misses something.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if that thing that is missed is important, the commissioner who approved it is stuck with their approval of that house. That's my only fear about doing new houses, is there are times that even you don't see a little thing that might make the whole difference. None of us are infallible in this thing. So it puts a lot of responsibility on the person that is putting it in to, consent.
Correct. So Val had her hand raised. I'm pretty sure I know what she's going to say, but Val, you want to address that, please?
Yes. So Diane, I think what's not clear perhaps is that because you have the ability as a commissioner or even a member of the public, you can review the agenda before the meeting. If you look at them and there is a concern with something that's on there, we can pull it off. I can tell you this, the houses and additions that are getting approved on consent are not the applications that take us 4 weeks or 5 weeks or 5 months to review. They're perhaps little 500 square foot tertiary dwellings or a bump off the side of someone's house for a mudroom. So I think it's not one person making a decision. It's somebody feeling that it meets all the appropriate boxes and checks that we have when we're reviewing something. And it's simply a method to minimize time on things that we all would have considered okay, but you can always, if they review them, and if you have a concern, we can definitely pull them off.
Mm-hmm.
No, I know that, and I'm not saying to have a concern. I'm saying, excuse me, that if something comes up that's questionable, and one commissioner gets stuck for it. If you have 2 commissioners and they say, well, this is it and that, we need to protect our commissioners from making a mistake. That's all. That's all I was trying to say was it's sometimes such stuff slips by us and it should be reviewed. Everybody reviews it, but if you have a question, certainly bring it up so that it's out in the open. That's all I'd like to see.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I got my hand up there. See it?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I do. Thank you.
I
Abby.
see it.
Thanks. That's the first time I've ever done it. Okay. So I still have concerns. My point was earlier is that sometimes I just don't get to even looking at, all the work the staffers have done. Something slips my mind and it's Tuesday and I haven't seen it. So I'm not up to date, and I'm sure it happens to all of us. So then having to stop the meeting to look at, to look at the new dwelling because I'm concerned that I'm going to make a mistake. So I mean, if we were to take this to a vote, I think my conscience would say not to put buildings and swimming pools like on consent. And so, I may be in the minority, but it's just a gut feeling about it. So.
Can I comment on that, Mr. Chair?
You can.
Thank you. So Abby, I get it. And I get Diane's point. I think they're a little bit different. They're certainly different, but they both go back to the underlying principle that Val is trying to promote, which is being prepared. And I understand you're saying you don't always have time, but if staff sends us the link in the email for consent in each week, and if you just literally before the meeting starts, click that link, it will pull up the list. And if there's a pool or an addition, you can literally open it up during the beginning of the meeting and say, this is no big deal. I see the locus map. This is why it's very important that we have complete applications so commissioners can orient themselves quickly. But you would be able to, I'm not suggesting we put this to a vote. So let's dispel that.
Actually,
Getting back to my point is it's made easy enough that we could actually be looking at these during the beginning of a meeting. So that instead of pulling a pool that doesn't need to have discussion simply based upon some area it is, or we think it might be in, we can just educate ourselves at the table before bringing it up. I'm not suggesting you don't do that. I'm just saying that the use of the website and the links allows that facility, and it's an important one. And I think we should use it. Thank you.
right. Thanks, Steve. So I actually am thinking that we might want to put this to a vote because at the moment, so to be clear, and Kathy, please tell me if I'm saying something wrong here, but I don't believe that there is anything that prohibits pools, houses, additions from going on consent. There's nothing that explicitly prohibits that currently. So in theory, anything can be placed on the consent agenda. All right, so that's sort of where we are in terms of the policies and the rules. In terms of actual practice, I believe where we are is that it's sort of like an agreement that, pools may be excluded, I'm not sure, but houses and additions would not be placed on the consent agenda. So for the benefit of those doing the review, the pre-review for the consent, I would like to give them a clear idea of what they should and should not be doing. And in order to do that, I think that we should put this to a vote so that it's kind of clear what the charter is. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, I just, oh, sorry, I'm speaking. But it's just that like, there are a couple of variables here too. Like we're a board right now. We may not always be the board. We may not always have Val and Steve looking, covering our ass. And so like, I just want to be in a safe space where
Yeah.
I'm making a a good decision. So.
Right, right. Understood.
Mr. Chair, can I ask that as opposed to, I haven't really thought, I didn't think we were going to make a vote on this. I'm just wondering if there might be some further discussion
Okay.
in the near future. There's nothing currently that prevents them from being on consent, and there's certainly nothing that prevents a member from calling it off consent.
Also,
But before we voted, I mean, for instance, new dwellings in the core districts might be something that are excluded, or pools. So maybe we just have a little bit of discussion on it. Is that fair?
yeah, I do. I think that it's worthy of further discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I think that was a good conversation to have. Whoever put that on our agenda for today, thank you for that. Can we move then to, and I think this is going to have to be, unfortunately, very unfortunately, the last thing that we review under our organizational stuff would be to review the policy of the move demo in relation to new dwellings.
I think that's going to take a longer discussion, so.
Well,
Members of the public will have comments.
yeah, I'm certain. Well, I'm not sure that discussion of resilient Nantucket, well, actually.
Yeah, that's going to take a while too.
it-
Maybe
the
we
rest
just
of- yeah.
hold
As
these
is-
over.
As is hardscaping.
Yeah,
Mhm.
looks
Okay.
like another meeting, folks.
All right, all right, all right. Okay, all right, fair enough.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
in regards to Resilient Nantucket, if I may, I wanted to quickly just remind the commission that we do have another meeting with the consultant next Friday.
Yep.
But I also want to stress any comments that you have, written form, anything, please send them my way so I can get them to Phil, the consultant that's handling that.
I thought we had that tomorrow at 1.
no, tomorrow's
tomorrow?
Saturday. This is
Tomorrow's
Tomorrow's
Saturday.
Saturday.
next Friday.
See how one can get confused?
Oh, yeah. No.
I didn't realize that we're meeting as soon as next week. There's absolutely no way I can be prepared. I'm sorry. It's just simply not going to happen.
Do you mean for Resilient Nantucket?
Yeah, it's, you know.
Well, and I'm actually going to be in Vermont. Anyway.
I'm sorry, Holly.
We're going to hold on these remaining
And
3
posted.
items. We're just going to have to hold those, keep them on as other business. Okay, so folks, we are now on old business. And I think, let's see, I'm here, Diane is here, Abby's here, Val is here, and Carrie is here. So Stephen, unless you want to hang around, I don't think you necessarily need to be in on this conversation. But we're at old business. Everybody ready?
Go.
Okay. First thing up, Two Stone Alley. I think you all know the drill here. We're going to have the presentation by the applicant. Then we're going to have Holly give us the latest from HSAB.
I haven't seen it.
Mr. Chair, I have comments from the individual HSAB board members because we did not
Right.
have a meeting prior to, as well as there's comments from myself.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Okay. So Holly will read those comments. And then we're going to listen to folks who have opinions, either pro or con, in terms of the latest proposal. And then it will go to the board. Okay. So who's up first?
Did I assume that's me? Tori?
Lori, yep, go ahead.
So Holly, could we go through the presentation first before we get to the drawings?
It's actually Kathy running the show, so.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so are you going to scroll, Kathy? Is that for the pages?
Yes,
Okay, sorry.
okay, that's all right.
Just trying to figure out how you want to do it. Okay, great. So good afternoon, all. We're excited to submit our extensive changes for the HDC's review. And again, we would like to thank the HDC for their time and their guidance. In the last meeting, we were grateful that the committee was able to allow ample time to discuss the specifics of the designs. We were energized by the highly productive session, and we have been working diligently to bring the HDC's comments to life, in many cases verbatim. We hope the breadth of these changes and our willingness to incorporate them once again demonstrates that we are eager, receptive partner in this process. Today, we are submitting a design that we are proud of, and one which we believe successfully embodies the HDC's vision for this home. Thank you again for your time, and we are humbly optimistic that this proposal meets with your approval. Overview of major revisions. HDC feedback per the minutes from our last presentation. Further, move the structure away from the alley. Yes, we have addressed this. Shorten the structure, bringing it further up the slope. Yes, we have addressed this. Significantly reduce the square footage of the building. Yes, again, we have addressed this. Return the sunroom to its original position. Yes, we have done this. Rework the roof line to clean up the second story. Yes, we've addressed this. Make the east elevation hardscape less formal. Yes. And I just want to move up. I missed the first one. We've moved, further moved the structure away from the alley. I believe I missed that one.
No, you got that.
I did? Okay.
Yep.
It would
Next.
simplify the north elevation and give.
Oh, sorry. Simplify the north elevation and give deference to the existing structure. Thank you, Abby. Okay, next page. Regarding further moving the structure away from the alley, as you can see from the diagram here, the purple line depicts the last design submission with the newly floor plan located on the site plan as our current submission. The setback of the addition exceeds all stone alley abutting neighbors. One stone alley at 6 to 8, 9 Union at 3 to 5, 10 Orange at 2 to 10, and 12 Orange at 8 to 12 feet off of Stone Alley. We are now moving, sorry, I just wanted to read our dimensions on the slide. We're now moving from what was 7'6" to a range of 12'6" off the alley to a range of 10'8" to 13 feet 5 inches off the alley. Regarding simplifying the north elevation and give deference to the existing structure, the north facade now seeks to be deferential to the existing structure. We've added windows to the second floor per the HDC suggestion. We've created less symmetrical window array. We've eliminated the dormers. The first floor roofs now also contribute to a single story element on the second floor as requested by the HDC. And you've got the old versus the new there. Regarding shortening the structure and bringing it further up the slope, the addition is now 12% shorter, moving the structure up the slope away from Union Street, thereby reducing the building's height. The entire structure now utilizes less than half of its lot length. The addition's eastern elevation is over 25 feet from the Union Street property line versus a 5-foot zoning requirement. And the building length is in keeping with the neighborhood per the chart on the right. And you can see the range of the lengths into the lot of neighbors that abut to Stone Alley here and where we fall. Regarding significantly reducing the square footage of the building, the square footage has again been dramatically reduced, and the east-facing second-story outdoor deck was removed to promote a quiet, lower-profile eastern facade, reducing the square footage. You can see with the purple again. Also regarding reducing the square footage, this presentation continues to shrink lot coverage making us the least dense property in the neighborhood that you can clearly see as outlined from this locus map here. We are currently the lowest of all surrounding properties. Regarding returning the sunroom to its original position, you can see old versus new of our last submission and this current one. We've got a new sunroom that's moved south and now is 21 feet, 10 inches away from Stone Alley. The sunroom now wraps on the southeast corner, replicating the existing sunroom. The sunroom uses existing sunroom windows, and the shrunken sunroom enhances additional additive massing. The sunroom is in keeping with similar sunrooms that can be viewed from Stone Alley. That's the third picture there. Regarding reworking the roof line to clean up the second story, the original building ridge reads as the design focus, as new roof is visibly lower. Original building's ridge height is lower due to shortened addition that moved the structure up the slope. Additive roof lines have been created utilizing varied pitches and short, choppy roof lines. The gables have been removed, allowing roof line to cascade down and away from Stone Alley. The east-facing roof deck removal further quiets the structure. The roof height is in keeping with neighborhood per the chart on the right. And again, you can see very average compared to all surrounding buildings. Regarding the comment to make the east elevation hardscape less formal, the hardscape has massively been reworked for a casual back alley feel. The hardscape complements existing grade of the land. We've eliminated stonework wherever possible. There's a minimal appearance of stone walls. The design utilizes masonry style and plantings of the existing site, as you can see in the photo there. And you've got the old versus the new in the bottom. And now with that, where's that slide? Oh, this is just some factual, yeah. So now I would go to the drawings if we could. Oh. There we go. Okay, so you can see a lot of what we've discussed. If you want to zoom in on the dimensions to see the distances off Stone Alley, I think the second page, H001, the dimensions might be clearer. HDC01. I just want to move these. I gotta move. I can't see. Can you zoom in on the dimensions? I just wanted to show the outline of the old versus new. Kathy, thank you. So again, you can see the dotted line of our former submission and see how much we've moved the sunroom, how much we moved further off the alley and further south as requested. Next slide or next page. On the east, you can see we've now mimicked the look of the existing sunroom, wrapping it around the south. We've added the roof lines on first and second floor to look for a more additive massing as requested. We've reduced the square footage, reduced the size of the additions.
Tori?
Yep.
This showed up on your little reduced thing when you were doing your first presentation. It looks there's these lines on the roof above the dormer that appear like you're trying to do a very shallow hipped roof there. Is that what that is?
Can you zoom in on the east you're talking about, Ray?
Yeah.
So I believe that is the roof line behind the farthest most eastern one. It's showing what's behind there. That from the east, you won't see it, but it's just replicating that it exists. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense in principle. Let's just
Okay.
say that. Okay. Okay, continue, sorry.
That's fine. And you can see from the east here, we'll get to the hardscape application eventually, but you can see we've relaxed the walls. We've got more of the natural grade that we're working with, less stone, less formality, and so on. Okay, south elevation, you might be able to see what I was talking about with the roof better there, Ray. It's showing that roof behind the.
Okay, so I don't want to get into it
Okay.
necessarily, but I do feel compelled to point things out.
Yeah.
It's somewhat unclear. All right, so the second floor piece that's furthest to the right, AKA east, I believe, appears to be a lean-to roof form.
Shed, yeah.
Yeah, shed roof.
Well, it's not a shed roof. A shed roof comes off of a gable. This is coming off of nothing. This is basically what's called a lean-to roof. And then on that lean-to roof, you've got a very, very, very shallow pitched gable that's intersecting that. And now
on the south elevation.
That's why I said I understand the very shallow dash lines in principle, because this is the result. Okay, thank you. Continue.
Yep. So again, reduced square footage. We've wrapped the sunroom. We've added additive massing with the roof lines, given it a single story feel on both stories. Working with the existing grade. Here we are from the other side. Similar notes. The sunroom is, again, over 21 feet off of the alley. The windows are more of a natural array and give deference to the original structure. We've pulled up 5 feet off of the Union Street property line. The next page. So I think the rest is the floor plans. If you'd like to look at the cross section or the roof plan. You can see how all this comes together.
We have another east-west building section that's not taken right where that ridge intersects the lean-to roof.
No. Did you say east-west cross, north-south one?
We were just looking at a section.
Yep, and you're looking for the other direction?
May I speak? That happened to be taken right where your lean-to roof intersects the ridge of the perpendicular roof that's running parallel to Stone Alley. So it appears to be, just sort of a hipped roof thing, which it's really not. It's a lean-to roof that has a very shallow gable kind of hitting into the back of it. So, okay, continue, Tori. I'll try not to interrupt anymore.
I believe we're done, right? I think that's.
Oh, are you finished?
I believe so.
Okay.
Unless we want to look at the roof plan,
Uh,
which is prior to this, I believe.
okay.
Oh, right there.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So now we will hear from Holly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you all remember, Two Stone Alley was built between 1858 and 1871 originally as a barn, altered to a house by Eliza Codd, an MIT architect, female architect, by the way. And all that information has been previously submitted and provided by Miss Linda Williams. So thank you for that. As previously noted, HSAB did not have the chance to review as a board themselves. However, I did receive individual emails with individual comments that I will read into the record and provide into the record in the office. Comments from Mr. Mickey Rowland. The general massing of the addition, which consists of hip roofs, flat roofs, shallow pitched gables, and half gables, is too complex and chaotic. It does not relate to the architectural forms of the existing building in any way. The proposal not only does not follow any of the guidelines suggested in building with Nantucket in mind. The additive massing should be subordinate to the respectful of the main mass, and it should step down in height in a significant way. The existing structure is a 1.5-story house. Any addition should be simple in form and 1 story in height. The stone alley side reads as a 3-story building and overwhelms the original mass. It is clear that the owner is simply trying to add too much space to this relatively small house on all 3 levels. Attempting to more than double the size is essentially a non-starter. Comments from Mr. Meerbergen. I appreciate the shift away from stone alley, but the proposed architectural forms are not in keeping with the existing structure or the downtown vernacular, and when comparing it to building with Nantucket in mind, should be considered disorganized at best. The revised massing also more thoroughly removes any suggestions of the previous building and does not do enough to respect the original form's importance as an iconic building on Stone Alley. Thank you. Comments from Mr. McLeod. All of the comments that the HSAB has made regarding the past 2 years of previous proposals still apply. This is far from meeting building with Nantucket in mind guidelines. Height and massing overwhelm the existing historic structure and iconic stone alley. Any significant addition should be built into the dramatic hill slope or at least parallel with it, not precariously perched out over the hill's edge 3 stories high. Roof lines are numerous. Gables, half gables, hips, and sheds with subtractive massing are chaotic and unsympathetic to the simplicity of the old historic district structures. This proposal is unacceptable anywhere on island, let alone in the high profile, figuratively and literally part of the core of Nantucket town. I do have a comment from Miss Lucy Dillon regarding mostly of the the landscaping plan, but I'll read it into the record right now. Outdoor lighting plan, stone type on patio, question. Handling of grade change from patio to lawn, question. Rectangles in front of French doors, question. Edging around driveway and stairs near patio, question. I also have some comments from myself as staff. I wanted to notate that the revisions did not provide the previous submittal for comparison, just the actual historicness. The footprint of the addition seems to be pushed back from Stone Alley as requested. However, the addition dramatically alters the north elevation, the most visible per the HDC, and should be very simple. The grading plan is not clear. It needs to follow the topos. HDC asked for a square footage of the existing structure versus the proposed. I did not find that in the plans. Specifically on the north elevation, the 3rd floor dormer is odd, and the HDC stated it was that elevation was too big. It still is, and it should be casual on the on Stone Alley itself. On the east elevation, the HDC requested to keep the sunroom. On the south elevation, asked by the HDC to simplify. And if you'll judge me one more, I do have written comments from the Nantucket Preservation Trust. And I did receive these yesterday. I apologize with our email situation today. I have not been able to email them, but they will be put in the record. To the commissioners, as usual, Building with Nantucket in mind puts at its best when a building is acquired or a plan for new construction is made, the builder buyer is automatically a part of a preservation continuum. And that's from the Building with Nantucket in mind book. The thoughtful preservation, rehabilitation, and restoration of historic structures is an integral to the continued success of the economy of the island. It is why this body was created in 1955. The proposed plans for the addition at 2 Stone Alley are not respectful of the original structure, nor its history. Linda Williams' report represents a detailed accounting of the history of the structure, as well as the history of Eliza Codd, the first woman to set up her own architectural practice on Nantucket. Any additions to a building as historic as this should harmonize with the massing, style, and details of the original house, and their bulk should not overwhelm the original size. In the case of 1.5-story main mass, any addition should be 1 story in height. Currently, the proposed addition and its many varying roof pitches and gables dwarfs the main structure. The history provided by the applicant in the presentation in the view pack discounts Eliza Codd entirely. It should come to no great shock that the accomplishments of this woman were overlooked in the 1960s and 1970s. Today, this commission has an opportunity to honor this important Nantucketer by ensuring that whatever additions are made to this structure are compatible with a subordinate to the main mass. The goal should be to enrich the history of this house, not to diminish it. Executive Director, Mary Bergman, Nantucket Preservation Trust. Thank you, Commission and Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Holly. So I was looking down the list of participants in this Zoom session, and I believe we have Sarah Alger on that would like to speak, Steve Cohen, Linda Williams, Mary Bergman's on, perhaps she wants to speak, and I have someone named Paul Curtis. Paul, I'm looking at your screen now. If you want to speak, could you just wave? Okay. Okay, you're muted, but I'll recognize you in a moment. Okay, so I'll just start in the order that I just read. So Sarah, would you like to speak on that?
Right. Excuse me, sorry. My apologies. I'm sharing the computer with Tori. I would like to speak after that. Thank you.
You can speak. Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Ray, do you want to start with me instead?
No.
No, but I will. Go ahead, Linda.
All right, since I did all the work for everybody involved.
I understand. I was kidding around with you. I'm sorry.
I have to commend the applicants on a very nice, fancy presentation, but what it ignores is the fact that we are here next month. It'll be a 3.5 years. I've been to every meeting. Most of the rest of us have been to every meeting, and we're getting tired. And I think that was the whole purpose of this. I have never in all the years I've been involved with HDC seen anything go on for 3.5 years without getting a negative vote due to lack of attention to the concerns expressed. And the HSAB and the HDC has been very clear about going south and diminishing anything going towards Union, which is the real public view, as well as going up the side of Stone Alley. What we have is
Linda?
Yeah.
Sorry, you meant moving east.
No, you asked, everybody's asked for them to go south.
Want them to go south. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Go, continue.
Yeah, I'm just reiterating what we've said over and over and over again, and this is still coming down the hill.
Yep.
It looks like the Titanic from Union Street with 3 full floors of glass with the most unusual combinations of roof planes, which has already been mentioned. I appreciate the comments from HSAB, but I'd also right off the top ask for this to go back to HSAB next week or the week after, I think, formally, so you can get a formal recommendation, because the individual members aren't really able to do anything formal. I understand they're in the record, but we'd like it to go back so we can actually participate in an HSAB meeting, which we couldn't because they didn't have a meeting. The vertical wall I've mentioned, I did do that extensive history. It's not simply a building. There's been some question in the past about whether the building went away when George Upton did this, that, and the other thing. George Upton's building, this is, it's at the Habs at the government, they are wrong. And the history here is wrong. I spent hundreds of hours doing this. George Upton's building is actually still here. You go down that easement off of Union Street, off of Orange Street, it's behind 14. It's still there. I sent that around yesterday. So this building did not go away as we thought originally and be built back. This is the original barn. William Codd, her father, was also an architect, did all the water company maps here. He gave it to her when she came down from Boston after being involved with the first women's architectural firm in Boston. They all came out of MIT, by the way. He gave her the barn and she turned it into a house. She's done several houses here which have the same weird thing on the west side with that overhang. There's one right around the corner that she did. It's part of what she used to do even in Boston. It may be away from Stone Alley, but it's still a 3-story vertical wall. And I can't even get into the architecture. I'm kind of speechless on that. The roof over the dormer, you've already mentioned. The natural grade, which we're not working with a natural grade, we're cutting the grade and moving the grade around again, thus retaining walls. They took the sunroom off and projected it out towards Union, so it is not where it was originally built. And when she converted the structure, that's the original sunroom when she converted the structure. The structure's remained untouched, basically, since she converted it 100 years ago. I have to say it's too irregular to even get into. There's too much glazing, too many ganged windows. The windows are too large. The reason why they say it's lower than everybody else is because it's the only structure all the way down to the end of Quantity Bank from Main Street down that is actually in the middle of the bluff. It's actually below the bluff and above Union Street, which was carved out of Quantity Bank. Quantity Bank used to go all the way to the harbor with no Union Street, no nothing until you got to the water. When they carved it out, they put everybody on top on Orange that faces Orange, and they put everybody on Union down below it.
Linda,
Nothing. So this is unique in that respect as well. So when they say it's
Linda?
lower, yep,
can you just wrap it up? There's a
Yeah.
number of people that.
I'm
would like-
almost done. When they say, they've made a lot of assertions which are not based in fact.
Okay.
When they say it's lower, this is the last point, when they say it's lower than everybody on Orange Street, yeah, it is, because it's the only one that's below Orange Street. And I'm not interested in blocking the owner's view, which owns the house that's on Orange Street. This isn't a standalone. They also own that one. This is guest quarters or something. But they need to go south. They need to go south and leave this structure alone, or leave the structure alone, or do something that's more sympathetic to the historic nature of this structure. As I say, it's not just the structure. We talked about it yesterday at your meeting yesterday about Wiggles Coffin, or Tuesday. This has incredible prominence because of Eliza Codd, because of her father Codd, and because of the history of the structure. And her history is unique among women in the last two centuries. So that's what I got to say.
Okay, Linda, thank you very much for that. Sarah, words to speak at the moment?
I will be very brief, Mr. Chairman.
So much.
Because I agree with everything that has been said by the HSAB staff and Ms. Williams. I think this application is an example of one of the things you just discussed at your organizational meeting. It's an application that's been on the agenda for over 3 years, where the changes have been incremental and haven't been responsive to the commissioner concerns. And I would hope at this point that you would deny it. They can always come back with an appropriate design. Despite their presentation, I don't find these changes to be responsive to the commissioner's comments at the past meetings. This structure and the addition completely overwhelmed the historic structure. They overwhelmed the historic streetscape along Stone Alley. It's not pushed back enough. It doesn't go far enough south. It goes too far east. It's a complicated structure that doesn't mirror the simple architecture of the existing historic structure. It completely overwhelms and obliterates it. It's just, I don't even want to get into the individual things that are wrong with it, because just as a whole, it's completely inappropriate for this location and for this historic structure. And I would urge you to deny it.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Stephen Cohen, would you like to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I will also be brief. I think that we've addressed this very well so far, but just for the record, I want to say that the HDC has advised these applicants dozens of times that they should be going north to south, and that the main existing structure should be preserved, and any additions should be subservient to that. And instead, they're going east to west, and all of the additions essentially overwhelm the existing structure. So to suggest that they're being responsive is the ultimate lipstick on a pig scenario. You know, like lipstick and earrings don't make a pig kosher. And that's what's going on here. It is a shameful waste of hundreds of hours of everybody's time that we're at this place, and they still have not gone back to proposing something that is consistent with the commission's repeated concerns and the neighbors' repeated concerns and what's historically appropriate for Nantucket. The applicant should be able to build a house that takes up as much of the lot as they want, as long as they are not going downhill and as long as the addition is subservient to the existing structure. Those are very simple architectural principles to work with. And if the applicant doesn't like that, then they should have done a little more due diligence before buying a very important historic home. I'll leave it at that. And also, I think that this application should be denied because of the time frame that's gone by. If they want to appeal the denial, that's up to them. And if they want to reapply, they always can. But the time that's gone by makes the notice so stale, it's insulting to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Mary, did you?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yes, I was, it's Ginger Andrews. I was muted before.
Go
I would like to speak.
Yes.
I would like to speak at some point if it's appropriate at the moment, or if you'd like me to wait.
I was going to call on Mary, but as long as you're in, if you could just make it brief. We're trying to.
I will try to make it brief and not repetitious.
Okay.
I think what the applicant has failed to understand is the wit and cleverness with which Eliza Codd designed her house. She took a barn, and on the east side, she retained some of those barn elements so that when you walk up the hill, it's a surprise. Actually, it's a surprise in either way. You can still sort of tell the way New England barns were built into the side of a hill, how interestingly she made her home there. And I just would like the commission to think about, her place, and would there be, thinking about Nantucket in the 20s, would there be a greater light if there hadn't been an Eliza Codd's cottage? So the applicant keeps proposing attempts to make the cottage into a large house. I am across the street and I own a large house. It's actually two houses. It's an 18th century double house. So it's not really an appropriate comparison. It's been in its current form pretty much since 1848. And as far as the measurements and the setbacks that have been presented, unless they have radically changed the way I read the plans, they are taken from encroachment into the actual form of the alley and not from the property line. The assertion was made at a prior meeting that fences from Stone Alley, from one Stone Alley, came partway into the layout of the alley, which, if you look at the historic photographs, you'll see the curb at the bottom of the fence showing that Stone Alley's owners have maintained their fences within their own property. So I feel that the setbacks as delineated on the plans are incorrect. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
And for those comments. Mary, did you want to speak? We read your letter. Thank you.
No, I don't have any additional comments beyond that.
Just okay.
Thanks for checking.
Now, the other person I see who's on the line is a fellow named Paul Curtis. Paul, if you want to speak, could you unmute, please?
I'm just here to answer any questions that anybody has.
Oh, so I'm sorry, but what's your role in all of this?
I'm the architect hired by the people on the street.
Understood. Okay. Well, thank you for identifying yourself. I appreciate it. Chris, you said, I said that you could have some words.
Yeah, just very briefly. I don't want to get into an argument with anybody about Eliza Codd, but if you read the documents that are given to us by the Library of Congress, the barn was taken down, and it states on the, I mean, it's only documents from the Library of Congress. It's not me. I don't really follow any of this, but it states that the fact that the barn was taken down and it's probably got no attributed architect to the exact building that's being built. So that's, I don't want to get into an argument about it, but that's what's written at the Library of Congress. Other than that, I think what we've done is we've worked with the HTC, yes, for 3 years due to many objections from the neighbors and so on and so forth. And the owner has taken on board everything that everybody said, and so has the architect, and has moved to his detriment for his living space, for his enjoyment off of Stone Alley considerably. And the building that is the addition that is being applied for now is considerably smaller than the initial application. Yet again, it's smaller again from the application prior to this one. So I think the owner feels that he is working with the HTC and has done exactly what the HTC has asked. And he would like you to look at the plan and take that on board. And he looks forward to hearing your input. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Ray, should I ask a question? Ray, it's Tori. Can I just ask a question?
Of me?
Yes.
What would the
I just had 2 responses to something that Linda and Ginger had said. Do you want me to do that now, or do you want me to wait until you review the drawings?
I would like to hear from my board members.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
This has really been discussed at length.
Yep.
Okay, so let's see.
I would go.
Okay, Diane, thank you. Go ahead.
This is a preliminary discussion. I looked, I believe it's on the east-west elevation. All the roof things in that roof that you pointed out. There isn't a roof elevation that is the same. There's 4, 7, 6, 7, 7, 7, 7, 12, 6, 12. This is ridiculous for a historic home. Second of all, there's no pointing out of the original existing house that is kept together. That is the primary issue here. The porch.
Well, you can't tell what's the original versus the addition.
Excuse me.
Continue, Diane.
It is important. It is ridiculous to look at something that has 15 different roof slats to it. It certainly doesn't make it any easier. These are just preliminary things that catch your eye. We should have the initial house outlined purple, pink, green, yellow, whatever you want, so that we can see how it is melding. The addition is as far as I can see, is almost 3 times the size of the original house, which does not fit in with our particular ideas. Setting it back from Stone Alley, I don't see that it's set back to any particular thing. It still is going east, not south, as we have been asking for the 3.5 years, is to go that way. They've made no attempt to go in that direction. Putting the sun porch out again and saying, this is it, we've done it good. I'm sorry. This is just a very quick statement. That's my opinion right at the moment as it hits me. And we've listened to this tirade. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. Abby.
Well, I wrote, I appreciate the design. It's a very, the different roof planes aside, it's a nice attempt at a renovation if it didn't happen to have all this history and being right in a historic area. I don't mind the design at all. I think it's very nice, all the sun porches and so forth. But the proposed compared to the existing historic house it's over twice the size. And when we're adding to, historic house, we want to do it as additive massing, as secondary to the historic massing. So I would like to see something more along the lines of that. I will say, as a positive, the approach to the landscaping instead of all the terracing hardscaping is so much better with that naturalistic approach. So I commend that. But the mixture of roof lines and chaotic, it's a lot better. It's a lot better design. I'll give you that. But the proportions of historic existing to proposed is just too much for the building for me to okay the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Carrie, how about you?
I think the program has to change. I think the whole second floor is just massive. The second floor plate is higher than the existing dormer plate on the old building. The first floor plates don't add up. There are jigs and jogs that are making roof planes that aren't necessary. That one roof you were talking about, Ray, if you're coming from Main Street, you're going to see some walls, some triangular cheek walls.
Correct.
Of that shed roof that have no place being there. If you go to the north elevation, you'll sort of see that straight line roof thing. I don't know. It just seems like this should be a 1-story addition, and they've got all that basement space built in just by the hill, and let that little building breathe. It's not breathing. It needs to breathe. That's all.
Okay. Val.
I agree with everything really that's been said prior. And basically, try as they might, it's 3.5 years too long, and not really gaining any traction. So for me, it's a non-starter. It hasn't addressed the concerns we've had in any significant way. And it's been very clear, I think, throughout that the existing building needed to be focused on, and anything that was added would be secondary. I don't feel that it has gone in this direction. And I am disappointed that they haven't arrived at a solution that will fit into the spirit of this neighborhood, its architectural languages, because they're still trying to fulfill their own ambitions. And I would motion to deny this application.
Okay. I'm going to, is that an official motion? Is that a motion?
Yeah.
Because I just want to add my comments just for the record. So I'm going to hold that motion just for a second. I'm not even going to get into the architectural problems with this, the lean-to roof and things that have already been said. But the overarching issue from day one has been the telescoping of this building down to the east as opposed to the south. That's one thing that was not addressed in the initial presentation about all of the things that were remedied supposedly with this. That for me was the largest issue, always has been. It hasn't been dealt with at all. So I would be in favor of a denial of this as well. So Val, you've made a motion to deny?
Yes.
There's something on the record?
No, there's a motion. There's a motion on the table right now.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of order,
What's
just
that?
a quick point of order. Town council has said when you have a contentious issue and you're going to make a denial, you have to make the findings on the record. Kathy can't create them because I had to do it in the past. And the findings that he said, due to lack of response to the concerns expressed, and then you have to, Ray, you'll probably have to work with Kathy to list out the concerns expressed that they have not met, because otherwise it will get sent back or it will get overturned in court.
Okay. So Val, can you add to the denial just due to lack of response? And we can fill out what the lack of response is with Kathy.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
So,
Okay.
so we're not able to respond on the record?
There's a motion on the table.
But we're not, so just
No.
a question, Ray. I'm just asking you, Ray.
Yes.
Yeah. So what you're saying is we're denied any opportunity to respond to the board.
At the moment, yes.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
We're
wanted to
in the
make
middle
sure.
of a motion right now. Thank you.
Just want to make sure that because
We're in the middle of a motion right now.
with
Thank
your
you.
presentations, we are entitled to a response. That's okay. You're in the middle of a motion.
You responded. I allowed
No,
you.
I didn't.
No, we
No,
haven't.
we didn't. But okay.
No, you responded. You were one of the people I had down on my list to respond. So, okay. So Val has made that motion. On the motion, Diane Coombs,
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
Abby Camp.
As proposed, aye.
All right, Carrie Thornwell,
Aye.
Val on your motion,
Aye.
and I'm in favor. That motion carries, which kind of means that the next application, the hardscape application is moot. So we can, I think, adjourn at this time.
You have to deal with that application though. You gotta do something.
Oh, dear God.
Linda,
Aye.
It's still there.
the motion has been made, the vote has been taken. We're good. Okay, so.
Thanks very much.
Thanks. Okay, so can I have a motion to adjourn from?
I have one last question. Sorry, Ray.
Okay.
It somewhere in my memory, and it could be I totally made this up. There used to be a caveat when something was denied, you couldn't reapply for a certain amount of time.
2 years.
I actually don't.
2
know
years.
that.
2 years, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, whatever. That's up for the applicants to figure out. I don't know the answer. Sorry, Val.
Okay,
But anyway, so should we adjourn this meeting?
please.
Ray, did you want us to come up with the 3 things why we denied it, or do you want to do that by yourself? Or
Well, we have the record of it. So
Yes, everything's on the record, isn't it? So
yeah. So I'll
Okay.
discuss this with Kathy, but I'd love to have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much, Diane. On that motion, Abby,
aye.
Val,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
and I'm in favor. That motion carries. Thank you so much for your time on a Friday afternoon, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
thank you.
Again.